You mentioned, Paul, in the 50s that you had a publication, Big Table. And in this particular issue, you said you published some of Neruda. You published Ginsberg and Dahlberg and the Beat Generation poets.
Yes,
Can you tell us a little bit about them and that time for you, that time of your life?
Yes, of course. A Big Table was really a great experience. It was completely by chance. I was at the time poetry editor of the Old Chicago Review, published by the U of C and all that, and we got banned for publishing some of Burroughs' work. The reason why we published them is that I had grown tired of some of the more academic poetry of the time. It was good, but it didn't hit me. I'd heard there was some good writing in San Francisco. New writing. And so this was about 1957 or so, 58. And so I wrote a letter to the only guy I knew, Ferlinghetti, Lawrence Ferlinghetti. He had a bookstore there, you know, he still does, City Lights, super bookstore. And so I said, if you guys could get enough good poetry together, we'll have an issue called San Francisco Writing. And Lawrence wrote me back a letter, and he told me to get in touch with Allen Ginsberg. And Allen at that time was living in Paris. So I wrote a letter to him and to all the other people that Lawrence suggested, saying if you guys get some good writing, we'll publish it. And Allen wrote back a long bibliographical letter, just endless. It was about 5 pages. I wish I still had it. Allen's a real pedagogue. He's like a delirious rabbi, you know. He said, write to a guy named Burroughs in Tangier. I didn't know who Burroughs was, so I wrote a letter. I said, Allen said, write to you. So I did. In came into our office Naked Lunch, incoherent as hell. All the chapters there were no chapters, it was just kind of a delirious manuscript. And the editor of the magazine was a guy named Irving Rosenthal, a brilliant student at the U of C, brilliant. Irving said, come down to my apartment and we'll read Burroughs. And I went down there and I started to read it and I thought, who the hell is this? It's news to us. It was really good. And not about drugs. I mean, drugs didn't mean a damn thing to me. But it was so real. It was like Swift. It was the satire was first rate. And I said, Irving, we're going to publish it. He said, yes. So we did. We published a few chapters. They're very raw and they're very harsh, very satirical, and brilliant. It got banned because we came out with the issue in 1957, in the fall of that year, and Jack Mabley was at that time the front page columnist for the Chicago Daily News. A nice guy, actually, the mayor of Skokie. A nice fellow. I knew him a bit, and I liked him, but he was square. He wrote this article on the front page called Filthy Writing on the Midway. Irving came up to my place at that point. I was teaching in Loyola, and we had dinner and everything. And I said, filthy writing. I said, Irving, we're just publishing what we think is good. It so happened that the University of Chicago was engaged in a big fundraising campaign. We were banned. And we all quit. The whole bunch of us, Burroughs and Kerouac and other guys, Dahlberg. And in December of '58, we met in my apartment and we decided to start a new magazine and publish it. That was our only idea. The big table thing was a very good experience, not just for me, but for the other editors. We learned to stand on our own feet and publish what we thought was good, even if we were wrong, and stand there and fight it out. We weren't there to combat censorship. I've had many interviews about big table and censorship. I said, that's not why we did it. We did it because we thought it was right, and we did the best we could. That's the end of it.
You once said that you couldn't imagine a life without poetry. You stopped writing for a period of time and you said it was, quote, like a veteran who lost an arm or leg at Waterloo. Some writers write because they have to. Why do you write?
Why do I write?
Yes.
Because it's what I am. I'm a poet, the way my dad was a businessman. I didn't choose it, I didn't pray for it, or I didn't want this or that. It's what I am. And so I write poems.
O. Henry had a favorite park bench in Madison Square, New York, where he wrote. It was convenient to his favorite saloon.
Gramercy Park.
Yes. Emily Dickinson looked out a window to a garden while writing at her desk. One of the places you sometimes write is from a truck parked in Lincoln Park. How did that begin?
Well, it began in a very practical level. My wife, Mary Rose, is a sculptor here in our loft, and her studio is downstairs. And when they make works of sculpture, there's a lot of noise. We also have two dogs who are sweet and hysterical, and they bark a lot, and there are deliveries from this or that firm about her sculpture. There are also phone calls. So I somehow got the idea that it would be best for me to get out of here. And in the summertime, I take a bike and I go to Lincoln Park and just sit on a bench or by the lake. In the wintertime, when it's too cold, I take the truck. And there are no phone calls, there are no dogs, there are no kids, there's no noise, and that's what I do. And I sit there and try to write some poems.
You work hard to make your poetry more accessible to many layers of society rather than the privileged audiences. Who do you write for?
For you.
Who reads your poetry?
Oh, you know, you don't, if you're a poet, you don't worry about that kind of thing. You just do the best you can with the poem. And there's another level which is important to me. I try to tell my young poets down at the University of Illinois about this. You do the best you can with what's given to you to write. Why it's given, God only knows. But I often feel that my wife has a book here somewhere about Egyptian art from older, times, and there's a picture of a scribe there. He's writing. I feel like that scribe, in the sense that the poems are given to me. They come from a part of me I don't know much about. But it is my true self. And you just do it. The truth is that whatever is in you as a person, it speaks in that language. It's like the language of the soul. And we don't know much about our souls. But that language of poetry is from the soul. It never bullshits and it never lies. It's like dreams. It's always true. And I love to write poems. They tell me who I am.